Here we go, Ghostly Archives. Okay, I'm using a new format. It works really well on YouTube. I'm not sure how well it's going to work on X. I think X likes the landscape, but that's unfortunate. I'm going to have to message Elon Musk about that, guys. So if you're on X watching which most of you will be, it might be a little bit of a pain in the butt, but we are Ghostly Archives. Yeah, it's a little bit strange. I don't know if that's going to work. It's all distorted. Let me see if I can change this around. No, once you get started the stream, you have to go with that. It looks really good on YouTube, but unfortunately, it doesn't look so great on X. So we're playing around here, and that's just how it's going to be. Listen along. It's going to be good. My guest today is Blake Duescher, and we're talking all about not ghosts. We do talk about ghosts on here. We're talking about Bigfoot. And of course, we're streaming live from YouTube, Facebook, and X right now, but it's available across all platforms in the audio podcast version. And basically, I like to promote X a lot instead of YouTube. I had this unfortunate event where they demonetized my YouTube channel for whatever reasons. They probably had a variety of reasons, one of them being that I hadn't been active for a little bit. That's it. But what peeved me off is they kept my super chats. They totally did not give the super chats, and that made me mad. So we won't be focusing. If YouTube monetizes, I don't want people to give me the super chats. If there's any way that you want to help the show, of course, you can you can share, you can repost it on X, you can click that heart button, you can tell people about it, you could subscribe to the newsletter, but I'm going to put this little QR code. You can go and just donate to PayPal. If you want to send $1 or whatever, it's really cool. This system, you can just do a QR code, tap your phone at it, and go there. So I'll keep that on for a few seconds. Of course, the website is genxnews.com/ghostlyarchives. I'll put that code up in a minute, but I had to amalgamate all my shows into one website. So I used to have a Ghostly Archives website, but they're all under Gen X News, and there's a tab there that you can go to Ghostly Archives, and it will lead you to the old site. So that is that. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Can't wait to hear your comments. Let's see what's happening in the chat. Joe Fox, I loathe Facebook and YouTube. Yeah, it's frustrating, but the frustrating part about X right now, if you go and look on there, they don't have the mobile video dimensions. It's a little bit frustrating. So I'm trying to get with the technology and the mobility, and they're just not doing it. So it's kind of frustrating. We look like we're being stretched, and we're going through like this void, like on Space Odyssey 2001 at the end, and we're going through a void. So we're gonna look really funny. I'm not going to put it off for much longer. I'm gonna bring my guest Blake in. Hello, Blake. Welcome to Ghostly Archives.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're going to look awfully strange on X. I feel really bad. This is what happens when I try to experiment. I should know better. But once you get started, you can't turn it to landscape, or I totally would. Anyways, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are yourself?
I'm here. I'm hectic as usual and doing a million things at once. I'm sure you know what that's like. Um, Before we get into talking about Bigfoot, just give everybody a little intro about yourself and how you got into Bigfoot and where your fascination came from.
Yeah, my name's Blake Duescher, and I grew up here in Michigan and got fascinated with Bigfoot at a young age. I started hearing stories about Bigfoot, watching old History Channel stuff with my dad and sci-fi. Actually had a show called Sightings or Sightings X, and my dad told me stories about the Patterson film and some spooky stuff out in the woods, and it just became fascinated by watching all these shows about lost civilizations, aliens, ghosts, the Loch Ness monster, and of course Bigfoot. And Bigfoot was the thing that gravitated towards me the most, and I really stuck to it. And ever since then, I've been going out there trying to get evidence, trying to get close encounters and interaction, and I've been pretty successful, I think, uh, in doing that.
Wow.
In my opinion, and it's been a fun 21 years now since I've been doing
21
it.
years.
From my very first encounter at 13 and stuff, when I would go out there and actively try to look and get research and stuff at 13, it was kind of hard to do that. But I did do that before and then had my encounter and then got that fever. And ever since then, it's been a wild ride.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, a lot of us usually, when we get interested in a lot of stuff that are outside of the normal frames of interest, we a lot of times it happens when we're young. Like ghosts, for me, I lived in a house that was haunted. I lived in a town where everything was haunted on the east coast of Canada. So there's literally somebody in the chat right now watching our show from the province I was born in, which I thought was kind of cool. But yeah, we
Yeah.
usually get started when we're really young. And so what was your experience like in depth when you were 13?
Yeah. So,
Like is
um, so pretty much, um, my mom died when I was 13 and stuff. So this was a couple of months. This would have been the summertime. She died in January, um, or springtime. I think it was like June and stuff. So it was kind of like between spring and summer still. But
mhm.
um, I had a routine and stuff. I would go out in the woods, and I would adjust my eyes to the darkness by going into the side woods we had in our yard and stuff. And usually it was swampy and marshy, and there was a little hill. But I decided to skip that and go across the road. And there would be what I called micro habitats or ecosystems, and basically they would be like a brushy field, a recovering field, marsh, swamp, hardwoods. So like different landscapes, but even though it wasn't a wide scale. So I basically would go over there and do my main, research going out, and I would go out by myself and usually carry a walking stick or a Bowie knife. And this particular time I had a walking stick, and then the moon was out. It was maybe a full moon or at least a half a moon. It was pretty bright. So I walked across the road and I started paralleling the road, and very quickly I started hearing something on. It would have been the sidewoods and across the road in my yard, and I thought it was a deer or some other animal, and I jumped dozens of deer at this point and got chased by skunks at nighttime before. Actually, different story, but so I've encountered different animals at nighttime. I wasn't too worried about it, and just starting my journey, I didn't think much of it, so I made a small little whoop and continued to walk about 20 more yards after I didn't hear anything. So I heard it again, and I stopped and I'm listening, and I make a small little whoop again, and it's the opposite of call blasting. This would be something that is very low sound, that it's not going to go past 100 yards or 200 yards echo in radius. So very quickly, I thought it was a deer and stuff again. And I was just starting out and stuff, so I kind of wanted to get going to some into the swamp. And so I walked about 20 more steps, and I hear this commotion, this burst of commotion, and it sounded like it came down the embankment on the side of this road. And when I I'm stopping and everything is happening so fast, but time seems to slow down because when I'm hearing it, I hear it get onto the roadway and take 3 steps like a person. I hear bipedal movement. It's not a quadruped. It's not a deer. It doesn't sound like an animal. It sounds like a person that's running on the road. In 3 steps, I hear distinctly like a person. And very quickly, I hear silence and then a splash. Psh. And then I hear a dashing motion towards me. And it stops about 30 feet away. The thickets and stuff that it were in, I couldn't see through, but I seen the tops of the thickets move. And it sounded bipedal when it was dashing towards me. But it stopped right there. I have my walking stick. I raise it up, and I'm, again, this is all happening so fast, but time seems to slow down. So very quickly, my thoughts are racing, about what it could be, what's going to happen to me. I thought I was going to die. 30 seconds go by, a minute goes by. It's like, okay, I'm still here. Everything's okay. I don't see it. I'm kind of going like this with my body language to indicate I really don't see it. At about 2 minutes, I breathe and I have to go back to my house, and I put my walking stick back and I take a deep breath and I turn and I continue to walk the way I was going, and I was going to get up onto this hill and get onto the road, go back to my house, but I had this uneasy feeling like I wouldn't be able to hear it, or it could get me on the side of the road easier than if I circled into the brush. And I guess my thought was I would be able to hear it if it got closer to me. And I circled back around, went into my house, and it took about 2 more months before I went out in the woods, especially at nighttime. And then ever since then, I've been hooked and had a couple more things happen out there, like finding a print, a couple things thrown at me and my brother at the bus stop in the morning, calls, things like that. But so that was my first encounter and really what got me started.
Well, it's interesting about you saying that because I lived on Vancouver Island for like almost 3 decades, and I never had any Bigfoot experience, but there was this, and I've told this story before on this podcast, guys. You might remember this, where there was a wooded area. It was like a provincial park, which would be like a state park, and I would go hiking. On one side, it would go down to the ocean. And I always felt fine hiking there, but there was another side on the other side of the highway, and it went inland to some marshy area. And every time I had tried to hike there, it was just this overwhelming feeling that somebody was watching me. And I was just like, I couldn't stay. I had to leave. Like, I just thought, I thought maybe there's a cougar because, it's Vancouver Island. It's very wooded. It's actually known as Ape Island because probably of Bigfoot or Sasquatch sighting. But I was talking to a friend, and I think she might even be in the chat or watching on Facebook right now. I was talking to a friend and I was telling her about it, and she said, "Oh, my family owned all that land at one time and they sold it off and to the government, became a provincial park, but you can't go, nobody can go. People can't go in that area." And she believes there's something there, like some kind of weird creature. Now, I've never seen anything physically. In your research, do you think that Bigfoot is something physical, or do you think it's some interdimensional thing, or do you think that what do you think's going on?
I've had ghost experiences. I've had UFO experiences. I've had paranormal odd things happen that weren't Bigfoot related. So I know that there's stuff that happens out there. I've encountered what I call the stick man. And I've seen, I guess, a wolf cross the road and it stood up on its 2 hind legs and started running like a person. Very distinctly different than a Bigfoot. So, no one really knows because we don't have a body. We've had no 100% observation and study and actual real research. Everyone's guessing and giving opinions. I'm on the fence. When I go out there, I try to keep open mind about the possibilities. But I try to go with the flesh and blood type of aspect until, proven otherwise, or I see more evidence.
Right.
I've seen orbs out in the same areas with Bigfoot. I've seen some weird stuff, sneaky Bigfoot activity, which to me there's not enough evidence to say that they're turning into orbs or going into different dimensions or spiritual stuff. But
Right.
I have had very close encounters where they were physically sneaking around me and doing a lot of physical stuff. So I think they might have some natural, supernatural abilities or just natural abilities or adaptations that we don't understand scientifically. But I'm on the fence, and I sometimes I teeter totter because I experience stuff and I've seen stuff, and other people I trust have encountered totally weird stuff. And I've been recently reading a lot of Native American stuff, specifically the Anishinaabe cultures and stuff. And when they talk about Bigfoot and stuff, there is some of the mind speak and paranormal aspects that is very interesting. So,
Well, that's fascinating because it's very the one thing about Bigfoot that I want to say, and I have a video clip that actually talks about footprints that I'll play in a little bit, is it it seems to transcend different cultures, and you can see it over time. People reporting this sort of wild man or this hairy beast. It's not like something that's just 20th century. That's what I find really fascinating. Whereas yeah, you can maybe point UFOs in the past, but not in an abundance. And UFOs seems to be, morphing with technology, in my opinion. But Bigfoot, I don't know, you can sort of trace it back. And maybe it's our fear of the wilderness and our back to our caveman times. I don't know, but it's sort of an enduring phenomena.
it
Um,
is it's fascinating.
So let's bring up this video here. I believe it's this one. If it's not, if you guys cannot hear this, I'm totally always experimenting. I so apologize. Blake, hopefully you can hear this. I had some sound errors yesterday on my news show, so I'm trying this out. If you guys can't hear it, let me know in the comments. I believe this is Sunday Cool, and they're talking about Bigfoot and footprints.
Bigfoot's foot. We're starting there. It's an amazing foot. I'm serious. Sasquatch foot can bend in the middle.
What?
It's got like a hinge in it.
Okay.
So it can like go straight up a mountain. They call it the mid-tarsal break.
Are we talking like toe to heel? Like a
Right in the
feet?
middle, like
Like your toes go up.
yeah.
Wow.
So you can see it in the footprints of the Sasquatch, but it can't be faked because it's such a unique foot itself.
No one would think to fake it like that.
Yeah. And you'd have to know anatomy and you'd have to be able to, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
there was a story where like these construction workers up near where they filmed the Bigfoot were seeing these massive tracks around the area. And then they came back and they saw some tractor tires like being thrown around and a lot of the dudes quit. So that's where the Bigfoot, kind of the name comes from. It's kind of stuck in the mud there.
Now that's interesting about the footprint. I had never heard something that descript. Have you like you said you found a footprint. Did you notice anything similar?
Yeah, a couple things about that video. But first with the tracks, yeah, the mid-tarsal break is something that Dr. Meldrum came up with, or is really the one who's pushing, which is, the bending of the foot. I have found tracks, some knuckle print tracks. I've casted some tracks that are actually in the back of the closet, so I don't have them ready. But down in Florida, we casted a three-toed print, actually, which is sometimes found in Florida. Some tracks here in Michigan. It's really hard to find perfect Bigfoot tracks that are pristine and stuff. And that shows the regular foot because of the mid-tarsal break. And I think is because the feature of why that is because they're crawling on all fours. It's called spider crawling, and people are really creeped out by this Bigfoot that is depicted as like spider crawling. That's how it's described. I've seen it in Florida and I filmed it. And basically, the mid-tarsal break, so when it bends up and stuff, you're not getting the full print, like the best humanoid fit. So when they're up like this and they're on their knuckles and they're doing different stuff, their tracks become so much harder to find. And they're distributing the weight onto 4 contact points instead of 2 contact points. So making it harder to find tracks because the weight's not pushing down on the ground. Every once in a while, though, you find some really good tracks, and I guess we've accepted it's not really a proof positive that the mid-tarsal break is something that's happening. And one other thing about that video is they started talking about construction workers and stuff finding, I think he was talking about, there's a famous trackway that was found, I think, a couple years before the Patterson film was found. And it actually turned out to be a hoax. It was basically the guy had fake footprints tied to his boots, and he would have a rope tugged to a truck, and it would jump him. Those were proven a fake, and they started talking about the where the tires were being thrown and stuff. But the Patterson film, they found tracks, and there was a sighting, and they went out there and filmed that, and that has stood the test of time. 50 plus years later. almost 60 years later, and 60 years later, and scientifically ran through, tested multiple times, and it's never been proven a fake.
The film, you mean, or the footprints?
The film.
Yeah. There's some people that say it is.
There's the film of Patty, the famous 1967 film. There are footprints that were casted from that too, and they are. Never been debunked themselves too. So they are the film, and there's actually casted footprints that show details and stuff that have never been proven to be a hoax and stuff by all the scientific scrutiny that have tested all of it.
Well, I have actually got a clip that includes the Patterson Gimli film. So let's check that out, guys. You know what? You know the irony. I'm always bitching about YouTube and Facebook. The video dimensions work wonderful on YouTube and Facebook, but where I have all of our audience on X, it is not working. I am going to have a chat with Mr. Elon Musk. He needs to have multiple dimensions for videos. He needs to improve that if he wants his platform to be strong video. Anyways, let's get into this Gimli.
Bigfoot. So I was editing that reel on the Sierra Sounds. They say like Bigfoot is imitating the humans that are speaking to it. But you start to think about, like, if a Bigfoot is imitating humans, in what context would Bigfoot have had the chance to study humans, right? Probably be encounters where somebody's doing something like, if you saw a bear, you'd be like, hey bear, hey, hey, hey. You'd be making kind of like a bigger, weird human voice. If the encounter turned physical, what would that sound like? So just picture a monster, Bigfoot, giant creature putting hands on somebody. You would hear someone screaming. You would hear gurgling from someone dying. Now, with that thought process, listen to this clip. I cut this straight out of the Sierra Sounds.
Okay.
There's 2 of them across the creek at the big rocks.
That's so eerie, dude. I don't like that at all.
This is a really scary episode.
Well, you heard that sound. That was a little creepy. So they think that it's learned to mimic us. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I love those guys. They're good guys and stuff. But
I love them. I know they get a little
really know
dramatic
anything about
things. But I love. That's why I'm like, here. They're a big podcast. Here's what they're saying. What do you think?
It honestly sounded like they chopped up the Sierra Sounds, because there's a lot more, and kind of their perception is, it sounds like a Sasquatch. Only interaction with people is when they attack them, and that's what it's hearing. On the large scale of things, these things are so close to people in backyards that they will watch you through your windows if you leave your blinds open, or if your blinds aren't tinted enough. They watch people and mimic people through interactions of watching a farmstead, of watching a family home that's been in the family for 50 years, and they've seen one generation to the next grow up and play and interact and stuff. So yeah, they've learned to mimic and people watch and probably understand mannerisms, communication. I believe they understand if you're angry, sad, emotions, your facial languages, where you're looking. I've been yelled at by a Sasquatch and stuff, and it was a mumbling caveman talk. And I
How did
understood
that make you
that it.
feel? Like,
So
were you
let's
frightened?
let's get into it. Yeah, I was actually. That was one of the only times I actually was pretty scared. Like something was bad was actually going to happen. And all my years and stuff, this is the one time that I actually thought something bad could actually happen because of the responses I was getting or the interaction. So I was basically bought a rifle, coyote hunting gear, light. I was out coyote hunting on a piece of property and stuff, private property, and it's in the country. But there's there's a house there, and so I shot a possum that was too close. It was like 10 feet away, and my rifle was obviously not sighted for that. So I missed that. I'm thinking, well, dang. I'm thinking, well, I scared off all the coyotes for the night, and I scared off everything else. So I missed the possum that was tearing into the garbage. So, I just thought my night was done. And so I started walking back up to the house, and I start hearing the neighbor yell at me, and I'm thinking, why is he yelling at me? Like, what the heck, like the coyotes were becoming a problem, and everyone has dogs, and like it was, it wasn't an issue, especially it's legal, it's in the country, everything's good. And I heard him yell at me again, but something didn't sound right. And so, I really am listening. And the third time I hear, and I'm like, holy crap. It's not the neighbor, and he's not speaking English. And I hear it again, and I feel like it's a guy. I thought it was a neighbor. I understood he was angry, he was upset, he was yelling at me. He's yelling caveman talk or mumbling caveman talk like the Sierra sounds. And I'm thinking, oh my, I can't believe I'm frozen. I can't believe this is happening because this is right next to this house, and it's in between like 4 houses, right? So like the 4 houses are like a box, the corners of a box. It's in between the 2 houses on this side and it comes towards me. I hear it coming closer. And very soon I hear a female chime in, and she is going at him, and they're going back and forth, bickering and this is my perception. It felt like a married couple going at it, and she was doing like sing-song language, fluty tones. She was like, and all sorts of weird stuff. And they're coming towards me 100 yards out, but they're paralleling the wood line, and they're coming towards me, and they stop when they're right directly in line from me, about maybe 100 yards out, 75 yards out. They stop there bickering. But as they're bickering, if they're coming down, I have the sense like this is a married couple. It is like, Bob, don't mess with him, Bob. I know he made you mad, Bob. He has a gun, Bob. Don't teach him a lesson, Bob. This isn't going to end well, Like she was stopping him from, I don't know, beating me up, going to scare me, do something. And she felt, and that's how I felt. It was like a married couple, and it was like that situation. It was so human-like. This was so human-like, the emotions that I felt that I picked up. Didn't have to speak his language. I knew the dude. I knew the dude was mad. And when they got 100 yards out, right in front of me, they were quiet. And I lasted 15 more minutes out there, and I heard a little creeping here, a little twig break here, very subtle sounds. And this is something that it's hard to describe. It's hard to pick up. But after years of hearing it, it's the sound of a 1,000-pound animal slinking through the woods, and it doesn't sound like a 1,000-pound animal at all. And when I felt the presence and the sounds were super close, I got wigged out. I went inside. I grabbed more guns and stuff, and I had them by the bedside as I slept because I had no idea what was going to happen after that. And so they and I felt pretty scared at that point. I've never had him being so vocal and mad.
We have a comment about that. Winona Wilson, who's my friend whose family owned that property, by the way, that always spooked me out. She says infrasound paralyzes your body when you have an encounter. So I guess she's saying that's the effect of the sound that they make is can then possibly paralyze you. And I can imagine fight or flight, right? Or freeze.
Yeah.
And
Even the encounter itself can do that, and it's hard to get out of it. But the more practice and more experience, you learn to just get unfrozen and start filming and try to make things happen. But it's not so easy.
No, and your comment about the humanism, it's one of the common, I guess, statements that I've heard, especially with hunters, is that they're out in the woods and they come across this, what we might say was Sasquatch or Bigfoot, and they want to shoot it because they're scared, but they couldn't, because when they looked at in the eyes, it was too human. They thought they were actually going to murder like something that was human. They just couldn't shoot it because it was like shooting a man, and that's how they felt. And so it's interesting that you connected on how human they actually come across.
Oh, yeah, extremely.
Do you have any more to
The
comment
communication was so cute. Yeah, it wasn't animal sounds at all. It was clear communication and stuff. And and to me, it was sounded like a people. That's a person. It was a dude yelling at me. Like I picked up that. I understood the emotions from that as a human. When you get barked at by a dog or you get yelled at by a bird or whatever animal, you don't understand that. You might think, oh man, that dog or that animal is kind of mad or is being mean. I better not go over there. You can understand maybe that aggression, but you don't understand the full-on emotion as soon as you hear something. And,
yeah,
I really
there's
picked
like
up on
this
that.
back
I think
and
they're
forth
they're
dialogue.
people.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
It's really fascinating. Now, is there areas that have, or like what areas in America, since I said this was American Bigfoot research, what areas have you researched? Are there like areas where it's more abundant in America to have these sightings?
I base this stuff's done in Michigan. I'm a Michigan boy. I've been to Florida, and for my research and the other researchers that are out there in almost all the states, that they're pretty much in all of the states. There are sightings, there are encounters, there are people who are researching, and there are people who are finding stuff. And so they're anywhere outside of anywhere in the country, honestly, that has enough habitation, even in the farmland. There's plenty of food, records amount of deer, records amount of animal populations now are, and plus all the national and state parks and stuff is really, and you can look at all the state's conservation efforts. Michigan is a prime example. Over the last 100 years, our conservation efforts have boosted to the point where, our animal levels and deer levels and everything were almost extinct 100 years ago from overhunting. And so there used to be no turkeys in some places in Michigan. Now there's so much abundance of food and everything. And that humans aren't doing the same activities they were years ago, where, they're hunting and gathering and on guard and constantly patrolling, constantly outside. By 10 o'clock, we're in bed, we're watching TV, the lights are out. No one's going outside. So the back property, the back 40 is free game to roam around and do whatever. And no one's outside to experience anything until you take your dog out or you let the cat in, and then people experience weird stuff. But
so are you saying sorry, I was about sorry for interrupting you. I was gonna say, are you saying they're more likely to be nocturnal? I was gonna say, are you saying they're more likely to be nocturnal because they're basing their patterns around our sort of sleep habits? Yeah,
they base everything off of what humans are doing, and they are more nocturnal because of that mainly.
Yeah. So you wouldn't catch me in the woods. You wouldn't catch me in the woods of British Columbia at 10 o'clock at night. And no, and I'm not even concerned. Like I said, my first thought when I felt really creepy in the woods was a cougar. And I also wouldn't go because there's bears and wolves. But my first thought was, what if a cougar is watching me? Logically, but I don't think it was a cougar. And I definitely think it was something else. And the fact that very few people go on that side is very telling of the forest. So I have another final clip, and then we can sort of, chat about that. Let's see here. We got one more clip. It's from the same show. I don't know why I'm liking these guys. I think I just find them really entertaining. I got a lot of.
They are.
I got
Definitely.
I got a lot of biblical stuff from them. That's really funny. Like end of days. And next week we're talking transhumanism and fallen angels. So, anyways.
Names for Sasquatch.
No way.
Sasquatch is the most popular of all the cryptid creatures.
Especially American culture.
Well, he's seen all over the world.
Really?
I think.
Well, we were
like
talking
the
about a
Yeti.
British Bigfoot.
What's the British Bigfoot?
They call him like the
wild
man.
man.
The wild man. And there's a bunch of sightings of this. You don't think about England with being a lot of wild spaces, but there really is.
Yeah.
Some of them are smaller, like
Yeah.
the North American
Interesting.
ones are sort of the biggest ones, and some of the ones in like Australia are shorter, 4 foot,
Weird.
5 foot, 6
You know what's
foot.
fascinating about that when you ask about the Native American stuff is that, like, do you realize that, like, when they have the totem poles, right, that every one of those is a real animal in the totem pole except for Bigfoot, right? So you have this
Oh,
idea that, like,
interesting.
these are all the real things. So why would they put something that they don't believe to be real? They thought
Yeah,
that the Sasquatch or the wild man was the protector of the forest. If you talk to Native American folks that have passed down the traditions, they'll say, you leave them alone. You kind of
So
stay
do
out
they
of their
fear
space.
him, or is it like a respect kind
Feels
of?
both. Fear of God, right? You respect God completely. And
Yeah.
Not to...
So you think Bigfoot
That.
is God?
Wait,
You know what I mean?
You got to be on your game here.
Yeah, you do.
You guys are ninjas.
Bigfoot is God. Interesting. But I find it interesting that they're saying that it's global, but they're talking about the differences between the different Bigfoots, like different sizes. So is a Bigfoot in Florida different from a northern Bigfoot in colder climate?
Again, a couple things I have to clarify for those guys because they're not Bigfoot researchers and stuff, but I'm glad they're spreading the information and getting it popular for us. I do think that just like any other animal, normal animals, there's different species on different continents and stuff, that I think are most likely going to happen. Just like, there's different people that have different skin colors and stuff. There's probably going to be, especially if they're interbreeding with humans and stuff, and you have some of that going on, then there's a whole host of maybe what they can look like and stuff. So, but no one knows proof positive because no one is researching, no one has observation, no one has a body. So we can't proof positive say anything like that. But when you look around at what else is on the earth and stuff, you see different species on different continents and different environments with different adaptations. The one I seen in Florida, he was small, skinny, humanoid, and he looked at me when he was crawling. He was crawling like this, and he looked at me like that. And when he seen I was looking at him, he continued to crawl, and he crawled straight towards another group of people. And the ones we have here in Michigan seem to be pretty cool, calm, cool, and collective. I know some people think the ones in the South are a little bit more aggressive. It probably depends on the environment, the people, the situations they've been into. When they start talking about the England and stuff, they showed those pictures. They were called wood woos and stuff, and a lot of different European cultures. I think during the Renaissance period, or there's a specific period where there's these legends they have stories of them, and they would talk, communicate in European languages and stuff, but they were their own people. And they were wearing the regalia and the shields of arms because those supposedly are real paintings of those wood wolves standing to be painted because they served under a noble person or that kingdom, and through their sheer powerfulness and force that they actually stood in front of those paintings, got the royal arms, and got some decrees and stuff. But there's no hard evidence of that either. But there's a lot of that in history with there's no hard evidence of this and this and this. But to clarify the 100 names for Bigfoot in Native American cultures, or there's Bigfoot stories in every Native American culture, that actually is not true. That's actually a stereotypical over exaggeration on a lot of levels. There are stories of cannibal giants. There are stories of little people who are described as hairy humanoids that get lumped into Bigfoot categories, but they're not Bigfoot. Pugwudgies are completely different entities. Buckwas are ghosts that feed people ghost food to turn them into ghosts and live in an invisible house. It is depicted as a drowned person who's overly hairy and stuff, so that gets lumped into Bigfoot. The totem poles are only found on the West Coast in the Pacific Northwest that depict Bigfoot, because totem poles on the East Coast, well, there are really no totem poles in other Native American cultures. That's more of a Pacific Northwest and California thing that show the Bigfoot on the totem pole, along with a thunderbird. So when you do look into some cultures, there's the red woman who gets, oh, well, she's an ogre, and sometimes she's hairy, so she's a Bigfoot. She's depicted in the Native American cultures as 20 to 30 feet to 150 feet tall. And some of these names are 250 foot tall giants that are depicted as Bigfoot, because researchers and colonialism, it's we're trying to fit the Bigfoot narrative to where we want it. And the fact is, there's very far between stories of Native Americans actually telling you, in modern times especially, that this is the representation of Bigfoot. There are some in the Anishinaabe or the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, the Cree, and other Anishinaabe language or native cultures. They talk about the Gitchisabe, or the 7 teachings of the grandfather teachings. And when they talk about honesty, they say that the Gitchisabe is a representation of honesty. And basically, long story short, there was a little boy who fasted in Native American times, who was bestowed the 7 grandfather teachings to teach. Basically, they're the opposite of the 7 sins. And the Gitchisabe was a giant who came out of the forest stuff and spoke to the Native American boy about honesty, and told him about that, so he would take it to his people and stuff. They have another story about their cultural hero, Nanojabo, who goes across the country and looks for his father. And one little, almost insignificant compared to everything else, is a part where he visits the redwoods, and there's a Bugajewinian, a wild man, who comes out with red glowing eyes and talks to him. Actually, mind speaks to him, tells him stuff that the future generations are supposed to hear. And in that book and stuff, the modern natives and stuff say that basically he says, the people who follow after you will know me as Sasquatch or Yeti. Many will never know of me. Some will believe me, and most will never see of me and stuff. And he talks about that his people will live differently. His people will not assemble in tribes. They will not build. They will leave no trails and stuff. And in that, this is a very ancient story from Native American culture, talking about a Bigfoot with glowing eyes and his mind speaking possibly, and doing all this, and is a guardian of this forest, and tells you things too. If you go in these places and if your thoughts are good and your concern are for others, and you ask the Bigfoot to protect you or help you find the medicine roots of the forest, that they will help. And in modern times, that story is thousands of years old with the glowing eyes. And now we have modern researchers and myself seeing glowing red eyes. Some people, believe the mind speak thing. I have to personally experience that before I jump onto that boat. But when the Native Americans talk about it, I keep my eyes and ears a little bit more open to the possibility.
Like
So the narrative that there's,
communication?
that's what it said in the book. That's what the story of 1,000 years ago say. And I'm so fascinated with their cultures that I want to experience it myself. I've never experienced that yet. But the narrative that there's Sasquatch stories in all of the tribes is false. They have giants, they have cannibals, they have spiritual entities. They're all their own different entities and creatures, and they have magic and all sorts of different stuff. To lump them as a Bigfoot is a gross misunderstanding and misconception, and one that is a popular belief that is just not the case. There are about, out of 200 tribal tribes. There's a list that I use and stuff of Native American website have about 200 tribes. There's about 23 to 24 Bigfoot entity creatures that are actually Bigfoot. Everything else is giants and cannibals and wendigos and stone coats and magical golems with jewels in them created by witches and stuff that you have to destroy the jewel. Fascinating entities and creatures all on their own, but they're not Bigfoot. So I know that was kind of long.
Researchers. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's perfect. There's a lot of researchers who have like this theory that they think everything's one thing. Like, and I'm not sure if I entirely buy that, because I don't think fairies are the same as aliens necessarily. They just have a different feel. But they're trying to say like ghosts, fairies, Bigfoot, it's all one unified theory. Not sure if I entirely believe it, because I think there are, I don't know. I just don't necessarily buy into that, but it's out there, you know. But especially if Bigfoot's an actual physical creature, and seems like that's the route that you're looking at.
It is. Like I said, I've experienced ghosts, UFO, and other weird stuff. So I know there's this other side, or the veil, or whatever. I hope it's not all connected. If it's all connected and stuff, then I think it's nefarious. I think it's the evil side, and I think that's what it is. I think it's a deception, because if it's all connected and stuff, there's no good purpose for it, because we're out there looking and trying to strive and look after this thing, and we're always chasing, never coming to the answer. If it's all connected, I feel it's an evil entity doing it, or the evil and stuff. I would say I'm not quite there yet. I know there's a lot of the reason why I don't study ghosts and do all that is because it's too hard to, or too complicated maybe, to tell if it's a good spirit, bad spirit, demonic entities and stuff like that. And
you get these.
So I hope it's not. I hope it's not that.
Yeah, I know you get some of these instances where people think they have a child ghost and they've got a demon. Well, so where I lived, I'm actually from New Brunswick in Canada, but I lived most of my life on Vancouver Island, the Pacific Northwest, where the native tribes have totem poles. And I've never seen a Bigfoot totem before. I have yet to see that. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. That just my limitation. But there was this myth. There was this story. We had this place called Forbidden Plateau on Vancouver Island. And there's this story that apparently they took all the women and children up to Forbidden Plateau, and there was a big battle or something like that. They took them up there to be safe, and they went down. And when they came back up, all the women and children or something had been slaughtered by some kind of weird wild man tribes that went up there. And this is passed on as truth, as fact. Like I've heard this thing repeated over and over again. And then when you go and talk to the native cultures, as I think it was Ruth Masters locally did, you find out that that's not even one of their stories. It's not at all. It was actually a PR campaign by the people who bought the mountain. They wanted people to come to ski, so they called it Forbidden Plateau, and they made up this story about this wild Sasquatch killing people hundreds of years ago, and now it's haunted, and it's called Forbidden Plateau. All made up PR. And so how do you feel about that kind of, like, does that kind of stuff, like, it dampens your research, like, that sort of made up hoaxy or PR campaigns?
It definitely it sucks. It takes away from the real truth and research, and everyone loves a story. Stories sell, fantasy sells. Real research and evidence isn't as good as someone telling you a story that maybe is real, maybe not made up. There's another example of the Choctaw Bigfoot War, which is a Choctaw legend of the Native Americans going to war at the same time as colonialism was happening with the Bigfoot, and it's all made up. When you actually go to the natives' elders and stuff, they will tell you real stories and stuff, and that's not one of them. I think in Vancouver Island has a lot of lava tubes and stuff, and I think it's the northern part of the island, or it's the part of the island where a lot of all you get locals and stuff never really go. It's the wildest part. It's on one side of the island. I can't remember. I got a buddy who's up there all the time. I think it's the north. There's a lot of lava tubes. It's really rugged. It's really wild. A lot of people go kind of missing up there. A lot of people just get lost and have to get rescued.
I know what you're talking about.
And there are native stories of that island being where the Seneca was, or the not Seneca, but they have different. It's basically Sasquatch or Sasquay, and Sasquatch is the English translation of that, Sasquay and stuff, and so they have legends and stuff up there. And most of the Bigfoot legends of Native Americans come from the Pacific Northwest tribes, and I believe the Bigfoot would be just below the Thunderbird on the totem pole, and usually he's depicted with big grin or with lips, kissing lips.
Well, you know that northern tribe, like they divided into 3 tribes now. I'm sure there were many back in the day, but there's the northern tribe, there's a central tribe, which is where I lived in Comox Valley, and then there's a southern tribe by the city of Victoria. The southern and the central tribes were always afraid of the northern tribes because they were known cannibals. If they warred with you and they caught you, you were probably going to get eaten up. They were way more aggressive. And so there's a lot of weird, probably stuff that comes out of the north because the tribes there were more aggressive. Interestingly enough, I probably believe that same thing. Don't quote me on this. I'm not a native historian. I read this in a folklore book, but I think they probably believe that they were consuming the energy of whatever that person that they captured. But I think when people like Christopher Columbus or discoveries came by, the southern and the central tribes were like, yeah, we'll work with you. Get rid of those guys up there, because they were a big problem. And now they're all just, I don't even know if the tribes are all just pretty mellow, but it's they have a really fascinating history, and there's like petroglyphs and everything on Vancouver Island. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff is
I don't know. Like we had a comment here. I'll just say this to you. Someone comment further north, Sasquatch are aggressive. So I don't know what is it with north stuff. Colder, rugged. I don't know. People are in a bad mood.
It's I think it's the situation. Individuals in their history with people. Some people, some Sasquatches to me. When I've had all the interactions I've had, and I've pushed the envelope, I've chased them, I've had a gun on me, I pointed a gun in the direction up in the UP, actually. Let me tell that story, because I think it's all individuals who in their situations with humans and how they feel about humans. But there seems to be this like underlying code of conduct of how you operate with humans, and to never be seen, and, never seek companionship. And, if it's a wild animal, we should have like attacks more, and just frustrated Sasquatches that start tearing up a town, all sorts of weird, stuff. But we don't have that. We have a uniform rule set that Sasquatch seem to follow no matter where you're at, and how they operate, hide, and interact with people, and people watch. And it's very fascinating stuff. But it's... I think I'm not sure. I think they're just individuals. But when I was up in the UP, we had the Michigan Bigfoot Conference. Now it's the Michigan Bigfoot and Dogman Conference here in Michigan that I put on. And at that year, we had a bunch of different people in groups, and the She Squatchers from Minnesota came, and Robert Kreider from New Mexico, good Bigfoot researcher. So we were up there. Jason Kenzie from British Columbia came down, a documentary filmmaker. He makes Searching for Sasquatch. He's on number 10, Minnesota Roars on Tubi. Shout out to him. So he was with me. We were going to change out recorders. I asked a group of people, hey, who wants to go with me to go change this recorder? He was the only one who volunteered, and I'm glad he did, because he was a really good guy, very funny. So basically, we walked to the trail. We changed the recorder. As we're walking back, there's these 3 little broken branches that are, twig size, and they're right in front of our face, that they're going to walk right in front of it. And I made the comment like, this wasn't there before. We didn't have to duck at this spot going in, but coming back out. And very quickly, I heard a burst as we turned to walk away. I heard a burst of commotion, or something like it swapped the ground, or something disturbed the leaves. And I turned around and I got my rifle off my shoulder and pointed it towards the direction of the sound, but at the ground, because I didn't see what I was aiming at. And since I don't see what I'm aiming at, I'm not going to shoot or do anything stupid. But I'm thinking it's a bear, could be wolf, could be mountain lion, because we're up in the UP. We actually did find tracks and stuff of wolves and bear. And but very instinctively, in my, at that point, close to 20 years of experience doing this, I felt like it was Bigfoot shenanigans. And I put the rifle back onto my shoulder. And moments after that, we had one individual who came and tree peeked. So when I pointed the gun, I heard a burst of commotion. It sounded like multiple individuals scattering away. Like, oh crap, he just pointed the gun at us. Very quickly after that, one came out and was tree peeking like this, but he was about 3 feet off the ground and stuff. And, we're seeing the eye shine. Jason starts filming. He turns on his camera. It's a Sony camcorder in 4K. You can watch it on my YouTube channel, the Lost Cryptids Conservatory. It's Blake Duescher and Jason Kenzie's Bigfoot encounter in the UP. So he's filming in 4K. My $150 headlamp just died 20 minutes before this, so we're using some crappy headlamps. We see the eye shine. We're looking at it. We're pointing. At first, I'm thinking, well, it could be a bear still. It could be an animal. It's not enough clarification for me to justify it's a Bigfoot, even though I'm hearing stuff. I hear an individual sneaking around me, and I know the sound. I know what I'm hearing. I know what my instincts are telling me. I'm telling Jason in it. We're looking at it. We're seeing it. We're pointing. There's a second individual that pops out, and he's about 7.5, 8 feet above, peeking out of the tree, but he's above the other one. And I'm thinking, like, holy crap, there's 3 of them. There's one right here. There's 2 of them at this tree. But, I have to still kind of be skeptical because it's like, I'm not seeing enough for me to conclude, like, it's proof positive this is Bigfoot. Could be a raccoon on the tree. Could be 2 of them. But when the one on the bottom, he went like this. He turned and went like this. And I see this whole cranium, his outline of his head, his face, and his forehead went like this. And then it extended up again like a cone head or a cranial head, like a crest, like on a gorilla, or some people report the crest on a Sasquatch, the dome of the head. When I seen that, the forehead from here to here to here, I knew it wasn't a wolf, it wasn't a bear, it wasn't a raccoon. Mm-hmm. I knew that this wasn't normal animals. And that was the 100% proof positive I needed, even though I knew already what was going on. Instantly. We were filming it, we're pointing, they allowed us to see them, they allowed us to do that. So, we want to get closer. So we get a little closer, and I start speaking Native American greetings to them. It's the Potawatomi greeting. So we walk up to them and start singing it, kind of to be friendly, to calm everything down. Jason brushes some leaves, and it scares him. And he jumps back, and I kind of go like this in between both of them, Jason and these guys. And I start laughing like it's funny, to make sure everything's calm, cool, and collective, because in this situation, it's intense. It's crazy. We get up to where they were at. They moved off to the sides, and we're standing there. And as Jason is panning and stuff, you see a big old eye shine right there, about 10 yards, 20 yards away from us. We don't see it. We don't notice it, but, it's right there. So, very quickly, I'm thinking, well, we need to go back to camp. There's more people. There's more equipment. We have audio, thermal, more night vision cameras and stuff, and more people to witness what's going on. So I actually speak and tell them I invite them back to camp in English and stuff. We're trying to do everything we can. I don't know if they speak English or not. I don't know if they understand me, but I'm trying to do whatever I can. And to get out of this situation too, because, it's being surrounded. It's pretty dangerous. We're out in the middle of nowhere. No one else at camp would know where we are at this time, because I was the only person who knew where the recorder was and where to go. So we decided to walk back, and we noticed the 3 little branches again that are right in our face. And I say, oh my gosh, they must have just did this. And it's possibly for us to notice. And we just walked up on them. And we did notice it. And they were watching this stuff, and they did all this. So, as Jason pans again, as we're walking, you see the big eyeball shine again. We stop, we're standing there. Jason looks ahead, sees something. You see it in the camera because he's filming himself. He kind of, he's about to say something, and he's looking, but then he looks back at me. He looks again, he doesn't see it. As we're walking, within a couple steps, Jason's filming himself. You see his face, his body. He has a whole factory reset, and he and says, "Oh my God, I just seen him. He's crawling. He's crawling." And the thing was standing up. He said it was standing up. It dropped down on all fours and spider crawled across the trail in front of him, about 60 feet away. He's seen it. It freaked him out. You can hear it on camera. You can hear his voice, his micro facial expressions change as he's seeing it.
Wow.
That was the third one that went around us as the 2 were at the tree. That was the one that I was hearing, and my head was trying to bobble, look around, and it had crossed in front of him. I asked him how big, where it was. I'm looking at where it went into the woods. I don't hear nothing. I didn't see nothing. I still don't hear nothing, see nothing. I think the Bigfoot, because I did ask for us to see them, and Jason did see them. So see that thing. And so in that situation, I'm thinking, okay, we should really get back to camp because, I don't want to go missing and stuff. It's pretty calm, cool, and collective, the situation. They're very curious. We got back to camp, and one person seen him on a thermal. They didn't record. There was a Sasquatch standing behind me. As soon as the person was getting closer, the Sasquatch seemed to understand that the person could see it on the device. He went directly backwards, ducked down, and was gone.
Wow.
And
I know you were talking about distinctive features. Do like in all of your engagements, it sounds like you've had some intense engagements, but is there any like building structures or mud-ins or anything like that signifies that is this particular species doing something other than actually seeing them? Like I heard somebody say something like if they've seen branches tied together in an arch in the woods, in the forest, that was indicative of a Sasquatch. Do you have any information on stuff like that? Like, are you looking for that?
somewhat, you could walk in the woods and see a bunch of different stuff leaned up and twisted and turned and, 1 in a million shot. And you have to look at the details and figure out if it's nature related, storm debris or not. I have found some tree structures or debris. We've actually had manipulation is what we call it, where the best thing that I have find proof positive is when you walk down a trail and the path is clear, and when you walk back, there are new sticks laying in the middle of the trail, or there's broken branches snapped off on the trail that you just walked by. And then as you're walking back, they're broken. In the one research area I was heading up heavily every single day, I would find manipulation of tree structures on the trail that was fresh. And they would have a pine branch in the middle of it. But when I would look around, there was no pine trees around for about 200 yards and stuff in all directions. For me, for the most part, it seems more often than not that these things will, in my experience, let you know or make sounds or do stuff.
Right.
It seems more often than not than, we just go out. All we do is go out there with some cameras and equipment. And if they choose to make stuff happen, it happens. There's no magic formula of I go out there, I make some Bigfoot calls and they start, coming in like on the fishing line. It's all up to them. And I don't know why we have interactions the way we do and why, we've been pretty lucky and consistent, but it just seems like they will let me know. They will do something. We will hear sounds of rocks being thrown, some out of calls, on audio. I've heard wood knocks, go over to the area. I don't hear nothing for 2.5 hours. The minute I go back to my car, 29 minutes later, knocks start happening. And 36 knocks happen in the 2-hour period once I'm in my car.
Interesting.
So
Do you wonder why that they have remained mostly undiscovered by like mainstream? Or do you have any theories about that?
they're a highly intelligent species who I think are a people who understand and communicate and understand us and know how to, because they're people, they understand human emotions, body language, I'm sure. If you spent a couple generations on a homestead and on a farm and you watched how that homestead operated every single season, after 10, 5, 10, 20 years, you think you would have a pretty good understanding of, it's fall. So this guy's going to be doing this. He's going to be hunting at his tree stand over here. Oh, it's the spring. Well, he's doing this over on this side. The summer, oh, he's doing this. The family does this. And they can plan the patterns of people and homesteads and properties. Properties, I would say, is more key understanding. Industrial properties. How much activity people go, what times of months do people go. And they will find the best properties and navigate and habitate those based on what we're doing. I have a good buddy who data mines. He's read over 100,000 Bigfoot reports and cataloged them. If the Bigfoot species were so intent on remaining hidden, they would not be as close as they are and purposely interacting with people. Where the Bigfoot, intentionally does something to let the person know that they're there, or destruction of property. If it was the case, they would be in the remote wilderness of Canada and not in, southern Michigan or Ohio or any other continental U.S. states where it's like there's no like Bigfoot in Florida. Like, people will laugh at you if you say this stuff. But
well, isn't there like some sort of maybe like
it.
Boggy Creek? Like there's myths. There's like the
Mhm.
Boggy Creek creature. I don't know. I've never watched it, but there are like myths of creatures in the South for sure. At 100%. Now we're getting over the hour. I want to ask two questions. One, what is your ideal research area? Like, where would you like to go outside of where you live to, like, is your mecca that you would like to spend lots of time researching Bigfoot, spare no expense?
Other than Michigan, which I hold a great deal in my heart because there's lots of places to go in Michigan and the whole UP, I don't have to go far. So I already think I'm in the Mecca myself, but that's my biased opinion. If I had to go anywhere, I would go to two places. One is the Nahana Valley in Canada, which is the Headless Valley. I think it's in the Northwest Territories. A lot of creepy stories up there. It's really wild. A lot of missing people, a lot of crazy folklore stories and stuff, native stories, weird stuff up there. I would go up there. It's a remote wilderness. You're in the middle of nowhere. Anything could be up there. So some like deep Alaskan remote spot or Canadian spot I would love. But probably go to Bluff Creek, go back to Florida. But in terms of an actual spot with like Bigfoot sightings, it's just Michigan. I love Michigan, but I would love to go to extreme environments, though, on top of a mountain in the Arctic circles,
like
and stuff, like extreme environments. Yeah, if I could get there and there was no issue, not get kidnapped and detained there, I would love to go to. There's this Russia, some of the Kazakhstan stuff, some of those Stan regions. They have remote mountains and an amazing folklore that would be awesome and stuff. But I won't go swimming in the ocean looking for sea monsters, and I don't like to do the lake monster thing unless I'm on a boat. I feel very vulnerable swimming in the lake or in the ocean. But I'll go in the middle of the woods during the dark looking for Bigfoot. No problem.
Wow. So, I mean, you're an avid outdoorsman, though, right? Like, you have lots of experience.
Yeah, yeah. I've been well. I mean,
Yeah.
I hunt
Just like
not as much as I used to
people
anymore.
shouldn't just
Hunt,
go.
trap,
People
survival
shouldn't just
skills.
run out. I mean, you have a lot of
No,
experience. People shouldn't just run out into the middle of the wilderness without someone or being skilled. That's what I'm getting at.
you should not be chasing after Bigfoot after dark or going after in the woods after dark if you don't know what you're doing. If you go out in the woods looking for Bigfoot after dark and the only thing you're going to carry is like a water bottle and you think you're okay, you know, there's a lot of things that could happen. You could sprain your ankle, break you could fall down on something and impale yourself. You can poke your eye out. That's actually a big hazard, one that I got lucky a few times. If you don't know the animals, I mean, you should research everything. If you don't know the animals that are even in the area, what sounds they make, what's poisonous, what's venomous, what kind of stuff you could rub up into. There's plants here in Michigan that if you touch them and stuff, you'll start having blisters on you. You'll start going blind.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're in the middle of the woods, especially at nighttime, and no one else knows, I mean, you can find yourself in some pretty bad situations. A lot of people go missing in some of the areas that we research. A lot of people just make bad choices and get lost. So
Yeah.
I've come across sick animals in the woods too, and you know, and they don't act normal, and you got to be careful of that.
So Emily says South Dakota. They're big. South Dakota would be an interesting place to go.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure they have a lot of Bigfoot. So last question.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, finish. Go ahead.
No, I think there's like a couple second delay. I was gonna say, you know, there's Bigfoot practically everywhere. In all the states, there are sightings. There are people researching. So
that's great. Now, we'll wrap it up here, and I wanted to know how Bigfoot has affected you spiritually. Like, has it had a spiritual, a religious, or that sort of effect on you and your life? Has it made you more connected with nature? Like, what has its effect been in that aspect?
You know, more often than not, you know, when I go out there looking for Bigfoot, the most of the time, the thing that I experience is finding peace in nature, re-energizing myself, it seems like, and coming away more better. And no matter what happens, I always get that. Religiously, you know, I'm on the fence of what they are and what they place are spiritually and stuff, you know. There's some rabbit holes you could get down to, and so I'm not quite sure if it's a spiritual entity, you know, that opens a lot of doors that a lot of people don't want to get into. When I read about the Native American aspects that I've been and recently read and been reminded of, that in the Native Anishinaabe cultures, the Ojibwe culture, of the 7 grandfather teachings and of the story of the Nanajabo searching for his father, that the Bigfoot is the one who told the little boy who fasted for 4 days to tell his people that, you know, this you shall live, you know, to live by the way of honesty is to always stick up for yourself, to never lie, to never talk bad about others, and a bunch of other things. And to me, you know, I'm a godly person and stuff. And when I hear stuff that the natives say that these Bigfoot told them, you know, I get a good feeling about that. It's a very spiritual. I mean, when you hear it and stuff, you hear the 7 grandfather teachings. You get a good sense of there's obviously the creator set those things up in that culture as well as others and stuff. You know, I think in the Bible it says, you know, you will know me by my words, or you will understand me, you will know me. You don't. And I think you'll see references that in some different cultures and stuff. But when I'm reminded of the Bigfoot, the Native Americans, specifically when they said that bestowing the value of honesty and stuff, I find that very spiritual and religious, and something that I am keen to and value.
Right. And I mean, the reason I asked that is because, I mean, you're outdoors, you're relying on your own wits and yourself. You're away from all of society and the chaos. And I figure that's like what better opportunity to have an insightful experience about yourself in the world. It's I mean,
Exactly,
I've been
honestly.
camping, I've been out in the middle of the woods, up in the middle of nowhere in small islands in Vancouver Island, and you're just like, it gives you a more awareness of nature and reality and the raw harshness of nature, and sometimes that can affect your spiritual beliefs, because we're so not used to it.
Yeah.
We're used to a lot of chatter and chaos and society and civilization. So I find that outdoors people who are avid outdoorsmen usually have a more in-depth, deeper kind of perception. So that's why I asked that question. Um, so tied up, where can people find you? And are you doing any more investigations in the future?
All the time. In fact, this weekend we're going out camping with the buddies at a place where we have lots of activity, historical activity. And you can find me at the Lost Cryptids Conservatory on YouTube. That's where we put most of the stuff, and that's our main platform. We're also on Facebook. We have a Facebook page and a Facebook group you can join where we post stuff, and you guys are free to post whatever cryptid, crazy stories, lost civilizations, a bunch of stuff. It's not just
And what is it called
cryptid
again?
related.
What is the group called?
The Lost Cryptids Conservatory.
The Lost Cryptids
And
Conservatories, guys. Go look it up.
And always
Excellent.
going out. Going to be doing a Michigan Bigfoot and Dogman conference here in a couple months, and putting together more camp outs. Always going out, trying to get evidence. Most of the time, nothing happens, but every once in a while, and the more often than not, as soon as a lot of nothingness happens, I know something good is about to happen. And so be on the
You
lookout.
should
We're
do
always trying to
some.
put out evidence. And
You should do some like weekend camp out tours. Like to tell people we're doing a big weekend. You can do Bigfoot. Like entry level stuff for people, and run a business out of it. I bet you people would be like, yeah, hell yeah, I want to go do a Bigfoot weekend. That would be cool. That's a good
yeah,
idea.
and pretty much, you just hit me up and stuff, and we take people out. We don't get paid for it or anything, but we do take
Oh,
donations. So if you guys want to help the real research and get, and the donations go for equipment and stuff, trying to get
yes.
full-time audio out there. So we're gonna have long duration audio, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off type of thing, or pretty much 24/7 audio recordings that we're gonna get. And so I'm looking forward to that. Got a bunch of trail cams out. And just investing in more equipment to get evidence for you guys and to spread the truth. And that's pretty much it.
Well, that is excellent. Thank you for coming on the show, Blake. Hopefully, you'll come back if you have any exciting new research or information or projects to talk about. I'm going to pop you into the green room here and I'll tie it up and I'll just chat to you in 1 second. All right, everybody. That was a fascinating. If you joined at the end, go back because he does some amazing stories, and he is got a lot of research, a lot of in-depth outdoors men. I mean, that is fascinating. I can't thank Blake enough for coming on. Just to cap it off, guys, if you want to support the show, of course, I always ask you to subscribe on whatever platform you're on, share, of course, like, and repost, press the heart buttons. This stuff helps people. If you've got some friend that's doing podcasts, clicking a heart and reposting, it's nothing. It helps them build up. It helps the algorithm recognize them. It just really does help. Now, if you guys want to support us, I told you they demonetized my YouTube. I don't like to push YouTube. They never even gave me my super chats. So if you guys want to support the show or my Gen X News show, you guys can just go to my PayPal. I've got the little QR code right up there. You can check it out. The website, genxnews.com/ghostly-archives. You go over there, and all the Ghostly Archives episodes are there, and it leads right to the other site. I kind of compounded everything together. So there's the QR code for the website. That is genxnewsx.com/ghostly archives. And if you're on audio, remember, please give us 5-star ratings. That helps us show up. I want to thank you guys for joining us. And I'm going to skedaddle off here. And tomorrow, I'm probably going to have a new show on X. And next week, you guys got to show up next week. Tuesday the 2nd, 8 p.m. Eastern, Dave Cruz is coming on, and we're talking transhumanism, fallen angels, Nephilim, biblical stuff. You guys don't want to miss Dave Cruz. He has an amazing show, conspiracy theory and all that. You guys don't want to miss it. So next Tuesday, April the 2nd, not April Fools, Dave Cruz is joining me at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. We're getting Nephilim, we're getting transhuman, we're going to go all of that places. Anyways, you guys take care. I'm out of here for now.
you.